we'll jump right in, starting to talk about volleyball, a subject that both of us hold near and dear to the heart. Both of us have played volleyball for a very long time, from the high school level to the collegiate level to the professional level. So it's something that we still have in our lives to this day. And a lot is happening right now with the women's NCAA heading into their tournament. So everybody just got finished playing their tournament championships or their conference championships, and now it's about to be the NCAA tournament, which is a big time for women's volleyball. It's a one and done tournament, so very exciting. The game is growing. Multiple schools are having it to where the very first time they're able to break attendance records, the very first time they're able to get TV viewership records up and up and up, which tells you that more people are viewing the game, which of course is going to make it so that more people are playing the game, which of course is going to make it that more people are investing in the game. So that being said, KJ, why don't you kick us off with what's interesting to you about women's college volleyball right now?
The crazy part for me is simply how many matches are just being 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Like I saw a ton of matches and I was looking, I'm like, I thought this was supposed to be like one of the more, I guess, competitive years,
Hmm.
and it's just surprising to see how many rounds where it's like, okay, first round 3-0 or first round 3-1 and then second round 3-0. I'm like, why is this happening so often? I mean, I think the teams are more comparable now than they were in the past,
Hmm.
but losing 3-0 makes it look like this.
Yeah, I mean, volleyball is an interesting sport to me because of the fact that you get to reset the score right. It keeps the interest and potentially keeps the fans in the building longer. Where in basketball, a lot of times if a team's up by 30 points, people leave the game early.
Mm,
You see the same situation in football if a team goes up really big
yeah.
because that score stays. But in a sport like volleyball, where you could get beat 25-8 and then literally come back and win 25-23 and it's
Hmm.
still 1-1,
Yeah.
that's an intriguing thing for sports watchers and sports viewers. But you're right in terms of that first round and second round. A lot of times in the NCAA, you do find that there are these like beatdowns
Yeah.
essentially, where a team is mopping up another team. But such good matchups early on, like a game that I was really in tune to and first heard about and then had to go watch the replay was USC versus Texas.
Yeah.
And Madison Skinner, is an all-world player. I mean, right now she's in commercials. Last year she won the national championship. She's been coming up and up and up. And Texas has had like a rocky start this year. They've
Yeah.
lost some matches to lower seeded teams.
Mm.
And USC has had a pretty good year. They picked up a transfer, Ali Baton-Horse, who's a really big time player. Mia Tuaninga, who's like a really great setter, who's played there for multiple years. It ended up being, a really big win for Texas. Texas came
Yeah.
in and crushed, and that just showed me the experience level. And that's the big thing in NCAA, from personal experience and then to watching it the last couple of years. When you have that experience of knowing how to win, knowing how to operate in other people's gyms, knowing how to be on the road and have success when the lights turn on,
Yeah.
is a really big deal. But what I'm most intrigued about the NCAA tournament is how it's going to continue to improve viewership. Something I'm really on right now with the women's game and the men's game as well is all of the development that's happening right now with the professional teams, the college teams, even down to the youth now. There's so
Yeah.
much more social media around it. There's so much more television media around it, and that's going to just create more and more opportunities because it creates NIL dollars. It creates people wanting to pour money into it, like
Hmm.
what's happening with Love Volleyball,
Yeah. Pro
League
leagues.
One Volleyball. And then it's going to be a trickle down, just like it is for
Yeah.
all the other major professional sports. So I'm excited to see that for volleyball.
I'm excited to see the way that's going to look when it goes into the pro game because they're still trying to figure out how many leagues we're going to have. I know
Mm-hmm.
that there's multiple organizations that are trying to create a women's pro league, and
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just waiting for it to kind of go through and file down into one
Mm-hmm.
so then everything can funnel into it when you come out of college.
Yeah, I always think it's gonna be tricky to create the like one league type situation because volleyball has proven to be the sport where everybody wants to have their own thing.
Yeah.
Right? You even see that with club, how many like little clubs pop up, and that
Hmm.
was the big complaint about
Yeah.
10 years ago is things are getting watered down because in every state it used to be okay, all the best players grouped together.
Yeah.
We play at this club, and then we go battle against other states, and then it
Hmm.
started to become every individual athlete wanted to be the star player.
Yeah.
So then there was all these little pop-up clubs with whoever
Hmm.
had their favorite coach or their favorite club director or
Yeah.
whatever, and then it started to dilute the talent. But now you're in a situation where it's positive that there's so many clubs because there's so many people flooding into the game, so
Hmm.
many young girls who are getting involved in the game and young boys as well, and there's just a growth there. But heading into the professional rankings, if you have a situation where you can get the better players in America to stay in America and
Yeah.
people start to get that viewership, that's going to be the largest thing that grows the game because if you say you're like us and you know who a Jordan Larson is, a Kelly,
Hmm.
um, Jordan Larson, or see, I'm already blanking on names, Kelsey Robinson, Justine Wong-Arante,
Yeah.
some of the bigger name players who've been to multiple Olympics.
Mm.
We know them because we've been in the gym around them, seen them play. We've watched them grow from college onto the pro
Yeah.
teams for the USA. But ultimately, they do go overseas. So there's a lot of young players who would have no idea who a lot of the up and coming players are, even if they're the best in the world.
Yeah.
And so now you won't even have to just be that top 12 or top 14 best in the world. You could be, the 60th or 70th ranked
Yeah.
player in college and still get notoriety because you're getting drafted into this pro league here. So where like an Asia O'Neal
Hmm.
was killing it in the women's college game
Yeah.
2 years ago, so popular, slide queen, Texas, Jermaine O'Neal's daughter, all this
Hmm.
branding. And then a lot of times that would start to get lost when she goes overseas. And then there's the brief sense where she comes back. And if she's one of the top four medals in the
Yeah.
country, she gets notoriety.
Hmm.
But now, okay, number one pick for the American League. It makes little girls go, oh, I want to be like that. I can
Hmm.
see her. I can go fly or drive and watch her in
Yeah.
America. And they can see that growth pattern. And that's going to make them want to engage more because once they see her, just like the way somebody sees a LeBron James or
Hmm.
a Steph Curry, they'll go, I want to be like that. And so, what do I need to do to be like that? I have to train how she trained. I have to train where she trained. I have to go visit where she is. I have to go watch her in person,
Yeah.
which people haven't really had that opportunity, right? Because it's not in America.
That's true. And I think even adding on to that, like so many players have to go overseas just to really make any kind of money.
Hmm.
So there's not really a choice. The only other way is if you decide to stay and play beach, which depending on what you want to do as an indoor player, that's a tough transition. So I definitely think it's good if you got our top players, they end up staying here because then they end up having the social media following. They get to be seen on TV, right? And also they end up being everywhere to be seen, which
Yeah.
is super important for us.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a video 2 days ago with Kelsey Robinson or Kelsey Cook. I don't know what she goes by now, Kelsey Robinson or Kelsey Cook. But she was in a practice. I don't know if she's playing for the Texas team or
Hmm.
which state she's in, but it's one of the Love volleyball
Yeah.
teams. And it was like a video of her just getting ready, training for the season and
Hmm.
everything. And I had this thought to myself of like, people will never get to see that. Most of the
Yeah.
time people are waiting for literally this media from another country
Yeah.
to post her on their media and have something like Volleyball World
Yeah.
repost it, right?
Exactly.
And so now again, if you have like a Haley Washington who's a great middle, if you
Hmm.
have a Asia O'Neal, if you have a Kelsey Robinson, a Justine Wong-Orantes, if they begin to get in America, although I believe Justine's overseas right now,
Yeah.
if they start to get into America and play consistently in front of fans, it's gonna create growth of the game because young kids are gonna go, I can touch it now. I can
Yeah.
see it all the time. I
It's
can watch it.
tangible. It's
It's just
real.
like, I mean, just like watching MLB, NBA, NFL.
Mm.
These kids who play Pop Warner, they'll literally watch a game on Sunday and they'll go to their Pop Warner practice on Tuesday and go, "Oh, did you see that run that Saquon Barkley had? I
Yeah.
want to emulate that. I want to do that reverse jump backwards
Yeah.
hurdle and try that out." And if you have 500, 5,000, 50,000 kids trying that in
Hmm.
America, that's going to build the game because other kids are going to watch that and go,
Yeah.
"Oh, I want to do what that kid did," or the most athletic kid on my team. And honestly, we haven't really had that with volleyball. Volleyball's
No.
been continuously having to start back at the bottom every Olympic year because it always builds heading in the Olympic year, right?
Hmm.
People get excited. Oh, Kerry Walsh, Misty May, April Ross, Alex Kleinman,
Yeah.
Phil Dahlhauser, Tal Rogers on the beach. And then indoor, they get excited. They watch the national team because they're usually good. The women are either in that bronze, silver, or gold ranking.
Yeah.
The
In the
men,
mix.
gold in '08, couple bronzes since then.
Mm.
But then, like, the Olympics happens, and literally it goes back to the bottom.
Nobody remembers.
Yeah, it goes back to the
They
bottom, and
forget
people
quick.
don't even know names. If I said to the average, forget the average person walking on the street, if I said to the average volleyball player right now, name me six people on the men's national team, I don't think most would be able to do it. They
No.
would go Micah Christensen, Matt Anderson, Eric Shoji, and then, blank. And that's no
Yeah.
disrespect to the people on the teams. We know their names, right? And we want to see them grow and build and continue to rise. But there's got to be more notoriety around the sport, and that's happening right now. So it's cool.
I'm with it. No
Let's
doubt.
go. All right, so college, who do you have in your Final Four? We've talked about this on our last couple episodes. We're actually in the tournament now. You're getting to see a little bit of sprinkle of these teams. Who do you have in the Final Four?
Well, I already said that I had Nebraska and Wisconsin in the mix, and
Hmm.
I think they were lower. I think one of them was outside of the top 10.
Hmm.
Like when we were talking about in the beginning, I think one of them was barely inside of the top 10, I
Mm-hmm.
still have those two for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Pitt, because Pitt is freaking scary.
Yeah.
But the last one is that one's gonna be interesting because I'm looking at Penn State and I'm looking at Texas and I don't know, it's really interesting, especially with the Penn State situation because Russ Rose is not there anymore.
Right.
So I mean, obviously he's like Godfather coach of volleyball.
Right.
But I'm gonna say Penn State in the mix.
Okay. Yeah, looking at the rankings here for those listening to this, you have Penn State versus Marquette coming up, Pitt versus Oregon coming up, Kentucky versus Missouri, Texas versus Creighton. That's the top half of the bracket. Bottom half, Stanford versus Florida, Wisconsin, Texas A&M, Dayton versus Nebraska, Purdue versus Louisville. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna go with Pitt for sure from that first ranking. I have Pitt beating Oregon and then Pitt beating Kentucky to make it to the Final Four.
All right.
And then I'm gonna call upset Texas beating Penn State. I
Okay.
think Madison Skinner, just watching her in that game against SC, like, and knowing from personal experience what it's like to have that experience having been,
Yeah.
if she can pull up some of those other girls and go, no, I'm going to show you the way, she can have a dominant performance. So I'm calling Texas there. So that'll be that half of the bracket, the Final Four. Bottom half, you know what? I'd really like to see Stanford go. Louisville's good, but I'm going to say Stanford. I think they'll have a tough game against Florida, and then I think they'll play really well against Louisville.
Yeah.
And then, ooh, Nebraska, Wisconsin. Are those two going to meet? I'm going to go with who won the last meeting between them? When I was
Mm,
watching that, I think Nebraska, did they win the last meeting between them?
I
I'm
don't
going to
remember.
go
I had to
with
check.
I'm gonna go with Nebraska. It's hard for me to bet against Charlie Furbringer, but it's freshman, first year in there, leading that team. Charlie's a really good player, but I'm gonna go with Nebraska. So my final four, I'm gonna take Pitt, I'm gonna take Texas,
Texas,
I'm gonna take
Stanford.
Stanford, and Nebraska. That's what I
Okay.
got. Whew, it's gonna be interesting.
It's
I
gonna
can't
be a
wait to
tight
watch that.
shit.
Big names. I want to see Cami Minor do really well at Stanford. Shout out to her. Shout out to Elia Rubin. Yeah. Elena Ogley, the libero over there.
Mm,
Pitt, Tori Stafford, she's a SoCal kid. Olivia on the right side, Babcock. It's gonna be interesting. Want to check it out.
Babcock
All
is
right.
crazy.
Yeah, she is.
Crazy.
She's nice. She's nice.